go to step 2, training. I believe in doing a high volume training from the very beginning, because you have to build a mind body connection, and that's really what it's all about, is the mind body connection. Now, some people use that mind body connection to be strong. Some people use it to push past failure, to push past the burn, the pain, okay, and keep your form proper. All of these things take time, just like studying for a college exam takes time. It's a foundation of education, or a foundation of repetition when it comes to the body versus the mind. But in this case, it's repetition that's forged as a symbiotic relationship between the mind and the body, forging it with each repetition. And what I mean by that, and I think that today's bodybuilders have really they've really kind of overseen this, is they don't pay attention to the actual repetition. They just do the reps, okay? So I'm not recommending that you do super slow or super lightweight or try to feel it, right? No, I don't think. But what I'm saying is use a heavy enough weight that you're going down for about 4 seconds, feeling it, and then pushing it up, and then squeezing it down, and then pushing it up. So you're in total control of the weight the whole time. Versus what I see a lot of these days is people going the same rep up and down, up and down, up and down, and regardless of how much the weight is, all of the exercises, all of the sets are in the fashion of what would be a warm-up. The rep, in a warm-up, I would agree, you want to kind of do more reps, and you want to kind of do them about the same tempo. That was what we used to do as old school warm-up. Now that's kind of become the way that they just pile on more weight and still do it the same, pile on more weight and still do it the same. The negative portion of the repetition stimulates more muscle fiber twitches than the positive, okay? So what actually you should be thinking of is like a spring recoil, okay? When you come down on the negative, let's say it's bench press, slow, and you come down slow, and you're activating more fibers. And then at the bottom, you can push up quickly, and of course it's going to be explosive, but the heavier it is, that means 1 or 2 seconds, because even though you're exploding up, you're still only be able to go so fast. And when that happens, you actually engage more fibers, which allow you to grow more, okay? Now, a couple of things that people don't understand is when fiber, if you think of fiber as if, it's strings. That's what it is. It's muscle strands, muscle fiber. And what creates the curve to the muscle, the peak in the bicep or the roundness in the deltoid, okay? What creates these things is where the stress is on the fiber as you lift the weight. So if you hold let's say for example, if you hold the weight or a side lateral at this port right here, and you do a peak contraction, and you do an isometric hold at this part right here, then you're going to develop more where it connects, okay? That's what happens. And if you hold it more at the bottom, you're going to develop more right here, just if you hold it a few inches out. So the importance of having a repetition where you go 4 seconds down, and there's so much science to prove this, guys. It's just, we've gone so far from it because people take gear and look good, and then you see these guys training and they never really learn how to train properly, and then some of your best people out there get pec tears, and it really shouldn't be happening, because they shouldn't be doing this chump pump style training, which leads to injuries. And I'm not singling out anybody, because everybody knows there's multiple people that have been in the Olympia in multiple divisions that have had pec tears. So when it comes to men's bodybuilding, or and for that matter, just anything, tendinitis, just overexertion of the muscles to the point where certain areas are more sore than others, and you may want to target certain areas, but that should be done with proper form and technique, not by using sloppy form. There's an arrow up there. So what I recommend you doing is using high volume to really develop your mind-body connection. And that mind-body connection, you perfect each repetition with. Once you've perfected each repetition, then you've developed the ability through multiple times and sets and high volume and training, okay? Just like with anything else, training is what allows you to get there. Cyclists train, runners train, boxers train, okay? MMA fighters train, and bodybuilders train. And our training, like their training, is with our reps. So if you do your reps sloppy, like a boxer would just go like this instead of actually going like this, then you're not going to grow right. Like he's going to get knocked out in the fight, you will lose in the bodybuilding competition. Please understand this. Your form and your training is how you develop the muscle. Don't believe that with insertion and certain things, genetics are true. I don't believe that because you don't have a peak in your bicep, you can't develop a peak in your bicep unless you put some drug in there. If you think that, and you think that drug, whatever it is, whether it's water based or oil based or just the normal gear that you're taking that you put in there and think that it's going to stretch your fascia and all that, if you think that's going to build your bicep, it's delusional. It's not. It's swelling, it's irritation, and it's causing a lump. And when you're in good condition, judges will see that lump. So will everybody else in the audience, and they'll be like, yeah, that guy's taking Synthol. So let's take a look at hard training. You may not have good genetics for biceps. Don't give in to site enhancement to build your biceps. Instead, understand that as you flex and as you squeeze, at a certain point, that's how it forms. Okay, so if you're doing a spider curl or a preacher curl, when you get to a certain point, it builds here. When you're going down, it lengthens out the muscle. If you go too far, the muscle disconnects and the tendon starts to engage. If you do your repetition where it's mostly the muscle, you don't go all the way down, but you go down quite low. And then it's gotta be at full tension. So you go down slow, and then you're at that moment, and you slowly raise it up, and then before it gets to the point where you want the peak and not past that, okay, you hold it there, and then you do either a forced negative or very controlled negative portion of the repetition. And I even recommend sometimes when you get to that one point where you feel it, just do partials and partials and partials, and then do your negative all the way down. So that's what I recommend when it comes to trying to build your body and how your body is round. When you do side laterals, if you do machine side laterals, holding them at the top will definitely help your shoulders cap, okay? But only if you can do it without engaging your traps all the way. So try to hold it right before you get all the way to the top, and then literally just do as many of these as you can before going down slow. And then again, going up, and then just do like little partials, and then go down slow. So this is very important that you understand all of these training techniques before you even think about sticking a needle in your body or think about taking steroids or growth hormone or any SARMs or any of those things, okay? Seriously, guys, how many of you guys really know how to work out? I mean, you say you do, but you say you do because you watch other people on YouTube and they don't know how to work out. They don't. Watch a video of Lee Haney work out. He worked out good. These guys back in the 80s, they actually, and I'm not saying everybody's form is perfect or whatever, but they trained a lot differently. As bodybuilding changed, okay, so did training styles. With Lee Haney, form was stricter, volume was higher, training multiple times a week even was what he did. Calves sometimes 5 times a week, legs twice a week. Now, these days, bodybuilders were training each body part once a week. They're using powerlifting style because they've seen Ronnie Coleman lift heavy weights and they've seen Dorian Yates lift heavy weights. And, people are sacrificing the negative portion of the repetition. Just literally, I see people do deadlifts and just drop the weight. They don't even really go down negative. And this ego style training is leading to a lot of injuries, especially when you add gear on top of the fact that people really aren't training correctly. Okay, so we'll get to that. Let me wrap up the whole training part. Once you've done high volume training, and then you venture on to training into failure and beyond failure, you have to understand that when you try to train intensely, you are cutting back on the number of overall sets you're doing, so that you're going from high volume to high intensity. You have to decrease the volume. The human body cannot take it. Even with gear, it can't take it. If you already developed the type of mentality and the mind-body connection from the volume style training, which may take you months and months, maybe even years, before you go on to this intensity style training. So what I just said is that you don't go to the gym and start taking gear. You're automatically going to have to be taking at least a few years of training before you even think about taking anything else, okay? And I swear that was my case too. I did years of training before I took gear. I took gear at a young age, but I also started training at a young age. Now, if you go to the high intensity style training, you have to understand that you still want to hit a failure at a certain number of reps. If you use such weight that you go beyond a certain number of reps and you can keep going reps and keep going reps, and like I see Tom Platz training people, and he gets like 15, 20 more reps out of guys that they think they're done, and that just simply means that no, they're not done. They don't have the mental capacity to train with Tom Platz because he made them do 10 more than they thought they could. So they're still not at that. They're not mentally ready to do it. Because if you're mentally ready to do it, you'd be able to put on more weight. And then when you really did hit failure, you really did hit failure. And everybody in the room would know it because you couldn't do anymore. Not this, I'm done. And now I'll do 5 more. I mean, when you're done, you can't even say it. You're shaking. So that's that. When you do the high intensity style training, you got to be able to do drop sets in failure. So if you do 6 repetitions to get to failure and then 6 repetitions in failure, that's a 12 repetition set, and that led to a combination of getting to failure with heavy weight and then going beyond failure to a total of 12 reps. This gives you kind of a blend of both style, heavy intensity, heavy weight, and then still getting a number of reps out of it that's more than 10, still 12 overall reps. And if you do this style training, you're not going to be able to do a total number of sets that you were in the high volume training. You're probably going to end up getting, maybe one set of 10 to 12, and then maybe like 1 or 2 drop sets, like what I'm saying, and that's probably it for that exercise. And in general, you have to understand these things before you go into deciding whether or not you're going to take gear. So, let's say you've done all those things. You know how to eat. You're training right. You're eating 6 times a day. If you do shakes, you're doing shakes. If not, you're eating 6 times a day. You've already done a double split. You've already trained your body twice a week, and you've already trained high intensity 4 days a week, and you've already done a 2 on 1 off. You've done a 3 on 1 off, a 4 on 1 off, 6 on 1 off, 3 days, and then the whole body again, 3 days. So you've done all those splits. Now you've trained. It's been a couple years, and you have a good physique. You've reached your natural max. You're very lean. You understand nutrition for yourself, okay, to the degree which you're not overtraining from your workouts. That's the most important thing. At this point, you can start to decide whether or not gear is going to be something you want to do, okay? This is a choice. It's a drug.